swear the music to that timer gets slower every single time we play it. It started out really upbeat, you know?
Yeah, I've noticed I'm not dancing as much anymore while I'm waiting.
So it's gone from EDM to like slow harmonic jazz at this point. It's like, what's happened? Sorry, we're ruminating over the countdown timer. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 8 of History's Greatest Idiots, the show in which we take you back through the annals of history and give you examples of people really fucking up their lives so that you could learn lessons from them and never repeat those mistakes again. But who are we kidding? We're humans. We like mistakes. They're fun. And sometimes they provide very, very interesting content. Joining me, as ever, is my amazing co-host, Derek. Derek, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Enjoying. You know, it's almost summer, so the state's on fire, same as usual. I think they actually got all the fires out right now, but you know, it is fire season.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about fires. We get this a lot in North Wales because North Wales is a sparsely populated area. It's 3 times the size. This is a weird statistic that I remember. It's 3 times the size of the state of Rhode Island, but it has half the population mass. So there's like clumps of people. So you'll have a town of like 5,000 people, and then 5 miles over another town of 5,000 people. So there's like miles of nothing in between, like just rolling mountains and countryside. It's like being in the fucking Shire. But a lot of the time in the summer, people get so bored that they just start fires. And massive grasslands just burn down. It's really fucking dark. So I know exactly what you mean by the actual fires. I'm sure they're not quite on the scale of Arizona's fires, but still.
It depends on the year, but it's just, I think it's odd to have a fire season.
Yeah, isn't it? Like, that's not something we should have as a normal part of our lives. You know, monsoon season, I can understand if you live in a certain part of the world and temperature clashes and climate and all of that. Fire season, that should not be a thing, really. I'm waiting to the point we get in human history where we have a baby gender reveal fire season. So it's just fire started exclusively by gender reveal parties.
That would be super niche. Whatever that word is.
Niche. Yeah. I've seen loads of stories from Florida of people starting giant fires by revealing the gender of their baby. That's just we don't really do that in this country. Gender reveal parties. We're just like, do we want to know? Do we want to tell anyone? No? All right, that's fine. It's just like it's a non-issue a lot of the time here. And also we don't have the space to start giant fires because we live on top of each other. Pretty much.
Yeah, that would be a horrible smelling fire.
Oh yeah. Could you imagine? Oh yeah. God. Particularly in certain parts of this country, it'd just be like various deep fried things catching fire. It would just be awful. Anyway, away from weird smelling fires. This is such a strange conversation. And we're supposed to cut to the chase with these podcasts. I completely disobey my own rules that I tell every client I work with. Like, you've got 30 seconds. Like, we talk about the most random shit for the first 3 or 4 minutes of our podcast. So, Derek, who is your idiot this week?
Okay, well, you know, you run into people out there all the time that are doing jobs that they've got no business doing. Like, they should probably do something else. They'd be better suited if they're not good at this job and don't like it to wander off. And this is one of those guys, only his job was super duper important. Kind of, I guess, maybe. He was the Pope.
Oh my God.
So
kind of important.
His story starts off messed up and then just kind of gets worse from there. He was 10th century, so this is a while back. I'm
1,000 years ago.
Dipping deep into history.
Yeah.
He's born Octavian or Octavianus in 937, and his father is Alberic II of Spoleto.
Wow.
The self-professed Prince of Rome. And he gets that Prince of Rome because his mother is married to King Hugh of Italy. And
King Hugh.
King Hugh.
Sorry, I find that name hilarious for a king. King Hugh. It's like King Bill. or something like that. King
King
Bob.
Bill.
Hugh,
Well,
what the fuck?
it's now I forgot where I was going.
I'm sorry. Distracted you with King Bill. I'm sorry.
Well, King Bill is a good one. I feel like that would be a good comedy movie, a buddy comedy.
Yeah. King Ralph sequel. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what it was right there. Anyway, this dude, Octavian Octavianus, was born the son of Alberic II of Spoleto, and Spoleto came to power when he overthrew his mother Marozia and his stepfather King Hugh of Italy. He locked up his half brother John the 11th, that was the Pope, and his mother Marozia in the dungeon. Hugh escaped out the window, and he comes back later.
Fuck me, this guy's horrible.
Well, his mother was never seen again after he locked her up.
Holy shit.
But his brother came back out, got to be Pope, and he puppeted him around. This is the father of the guy that I'm talking about.
Right, okay.
The gentleman I'm talking about is known as the Young Pope.
Okay.
And is probably the worst pope in history, according to most people. His reign was known as the Papal Pornocracy.
Wow, that sounds weird.
Well, it is weird. Back to his dad, Alberic, and his mother, Marosa, who was Alberic's half-sister.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, that's all weird. Anyway, we wandered off. He overthrew them, and he's running Rome as the Alberic, the father of John the 12th and brother of John the 11th. Do I got you thoroughly confused? Because I am.
He's imprisoned his mum. He's now ruling Rome. That's the important part.
And along comes his son, the gentleman we're covering, Pope John the 12th. He's either the son, or the son. His mother is either Alberic's stepsister or one of his concubines, and he's the illegitimate child of the dude that overthrew his mom and locked up his mom and brother and made his stepfather jump out the window and run off.
I really hope he's illegitimate, because I mean, we say ancient Rome. This is 1,000 years ago. This kind of crazy inbred aristocracy bullshit had been going on way too long at this point.
And it's really like 4 Italian families that are kind of vying for power at that time too. Yeah. And Alberic comes in and he takes over for like 20 years.
Wow.
And
that's
on
a
his
long run at that time.
It was a pretty good run.
Yeah.
And on his deathbed, he gets this fever, and he has him take him to the tomb of St. Peter, because the basilica and that weren't built for another 500 years or so.
Of course,
and he gathers all of the people of Rome, the cardinals and bishops, and makes them promise over the bones of St. Peter that when the current pope dies, his son Octavian Octavianus gets to be pope.
Jesus, that's a bit intense. And
they agree. They say Octavian's going to be pope when I can't Agapitus, Agapitus II. Agapitus.
Wow, him. Well,
yes.
Yeah. Wow. But so that's, I mean, for Catholics and at this time as well, the Rock of Rome, St. Paul, the guy who meets you at the pearly gates when you die and sees whether you're on the list to come through or not, making people swear on his bones. That's some pretty intense shit right there.
And, well, I mean, they're going to follow through, right?
Well, yeah. They're terrified. They're like, oh my God, God will smite us if we don't do this.
Here's the thing, that Pope Agapitus II dies a year later, and here comes Octavian, 18 years old, to be Pope.
Oh, shit.
His papacy comes at the end of what the Catholic historians call the Dark Century, and they know his reign as the Papal Pornocracy, or the reign of prostitutes. Oof. Because,
he liked them hoes?
Yes, he actually turned one of his residences into a large brothel. He was known
What?
for bedding married women
Oh
and
no.
gambling and drinking and doing all kinds of drugs and stuff. He was um he was pretty nuts. I got to try to catch up to where I am here.
So he's essentially Larry Flint, this
Yeah,
guy,
but the
basically.
Pope.
But the Pope.
And he's living the wild gambling lifestyle, blowing through the money. He's using up Rome's money as the Pope,
Wow.
blowing through that. And he's let's see, one of his mistresses, he made the governor of a papal city and gave her a whole bunch of money and treasures from the church. And then he inherited some more. Oh, excuse me. She inherited more when he impregnated her.
Oh
And
God.
then there was reports that he invited or even kidnapped female pilgrims that were coming to Rome and
What?
brought them over to the Lateran Palace and had sex with them.
Oh my God.
And while he was busy gambling and whoring about, as popes do, I guess, in the 10th
Apparently.
century, um, they were under threat of attack
Yeah. The
from
Italian city states at this time, it was kind of a non-stop war for like 500 years. Like it went on right the way through the Renaissance. They were just constantly at each other's throats. Even the papal states were not safe.
right.
That's
And
crazy.
I'm trying to let's see the Bernard Gar of Irva was his big threat.
Right.
Baranarg. I suck at speaking words. Why do I do a podcast?
I think, in fairness to you, these are 1,000-year-old names in a part of the world that is still speaking a now dead language. So I think it's excusable, to be fair.
Okay, I'll take that. So they're under this constant threat from this Berengar of Irvin, who is the nephew of his uncle John's stepfather, Hugh, who jumped out the window and took
Oh,
off,
right. Okay.
So he's pressing and trying to take back the papal states and Rome. And Pope John XII is busy doing his thing and gambling and banging. And he gets a little worried and wants some help fending off the attacks.
Okay.
So he starts making a deal with a gentleman named Otto of Saxony.
Oh, okay.
Super duper pious leader.
Good. That's probably a smart decision, because at this point in time, one of the options, and it's certainly something that has come back to bite kind of city states in the ass multiple times, is they would hire mercenaries. And the problem is that the mercenaries would get so powerful and get so much money from them that not only would they attack the people they were paid to attack, but they'd also then attack the people that had paid them and steal their land. So going for someone who's, I know. So getting someone who was pious to do the Pope's bidding is a very wise decision, actually.
Unless, of course, you're a super bad Pope that likes banging and raping and kidnapping and gambling.
Oh, no.
So Otto of Saxony is pretty much the total opposite of Pope John XII. And he's also 30 years older. He spent all of his time taking Germany and turning it into a single state and just kicking everybody's ass. He's the symbol of Christian piety and chivalry. And his prime goal was to resurrect the huge empire of Charlemagne, the glorious Holy Roman Empire. And kind of, this is where the second one starts. And it's all Pope John XII's fault for bringing Otto in to help him fight off this guy, and became the Holy Roman Emperor in exchange for protecting the papal states from Bergenar.
Right. So he struck a deal where he ceded a significant portion of power in the Catholic world, the Western European world at the time, just so that he can stay Pope. Wow. That's quite a gamble. That's interesting.
Blow through Rome and church's money.
Yeah, and bang whoever he wants.
Exactly. And they can't get rid of him because he was elected by the people of Rome. So On February 2nd, 962, Otto and his wife knelt before the young Pope at St. Peter Cathedral and received the imperial crown of the Holy Roman Emperor. In exchange, he promised to protect and defend the independence of the Papal States, which he did. He stayed in Rome for 2 weeks or so, and
Right.
that's when his relationship with Pope John XII started to kind of shit the bed a little bit. The new Holy Roman Emperor started lecturing the Pope on his scandalous ways, and he's talking to him like he's a little schoolboy and
Can't
just
do that.
kind of, treating him like a little punk
Little
because
bitch.
he was in his eyes, and he wasn't being a good Pope. He wasn't following the word of
No.
God and the church
I
as
mean, that side, he's true. He's right. You cannot be behaving like this and be Pope, but at the same time, you can't lecture the fucking Pope, dude. Even
well,
if
and
he's a little bitch.
exactly because and then you don't just wander off to go fight right after you do that. So like a
Right.
couple of days later, he takes off and he goes to fight Berengar in the northern Italy, and the Pope that he just punked out is 24 years old and
Right.
doesn't like Otto too much now,
Mhm.
and decides he's not going to listen to any of his lectures or hold to any of the promises he gave to Otto
Wow.
before he left. And then there's a report sent to Otto while he's fighting Berengar that Pope John is still with the mistresses and gambling and
Okay.
taking the female pilgrims. And so Otto gets pissed
Yeah.
and he says he's only a boy and will soon alter if good men set an example. So
Hmm.
he's not too mad. Help him out. Then he gets another letter. Yeah, he's not doing that. So he's coming back from fighting the dude to put the Pope back in order and
Wow.
step in and do his Holy Roman Emperor thing. And I guess check the Pope because I don't know. I thought the Pope was above the. I don't know. The Emperor or
Yeah.
the Pope is in charge.
That's the thing that you have to establish right out of the gate. Like, you will protect my lands. As a result of that, you will be declared Holy Roman Emperor, but you are subservient to me because I am God's elected official on earth. That's like, if you haven't set that up and also maybe said, also, I like them prostitutes, let me do my shit, then you're setting yourself up for a fall. And it sounds like that arrangement hadn't happened. So,
Yeah. Well, Pope John XII started talking to another person to maybe be a Holy Roman Emperor because now he doesn't trust Otto. And then the rumor gets up to Otto while he's fighting. He's talking to somebody else that he might give away your earned crown there. So he turns around and he heads back to Rome and decides that he's just gonna sack the city and get rid of the Pope.
yep.
John doesn't hang around. He takes off, takes everything that he can get, his wine and his jewels, and runs off to Tivoli
Okay.
with Aldebert, who was the King Berenger's son. Oh yeah, I forgot
Right.
to mention that. The dude he was fighting, Otto,
Yeah.
his son, Aldebert, is the guy that Pope John XII was going to give the crown to. The
Oh.
son of the guy that he appointed to fight.
So
Kind of a shit show.
that's incredible. So he's basically playing the current Holy Roman Emperor against his enemy
Enemy's
by
son.
yeah, and basically trying to see if they wipe each other. He's seeing if they weaken each other to a certain degree, I think, at this point. Wow. This is some Game
Maybe.
of Thrones shit, this. Holy God.
And Otto rolls back in, and like I said, he takes off to Tivoli with the son of Berengar, the Otto's army still fighting in northern Italy,
Jesus.
and becomes an apostate. So once he's in control of the city, Otto called the council of bishops, cardinals, and deacons, and over 100 church officials to talk about the crimes that John had committed over his 8-year run as the Pope,
Wow.
which
Probably substantial amount of crimes, I'd imagine.
he publicly hunted, which I guess is bad. He blinded his confessor, Benedict.
Oh, wow.
He killed Cardinal John after he had him castrated.
Jesus.
He set houses on fire and rode around Rome in armor.
What?
He ordained a deacon in a stable.
What? That's fucking mad.
And while he was gambling, he would ask the assistance of pagan gods like Jupiter and Venus. And the top crime is toasting the devil. He made toast to the devil.
Fuck, dude.
So
stop being such an edgelord. You're the Pope. Get your shit together.
Worst Pope ever.
He's praising Satan like he's fucking Ozzy Osbourne or something. Oh my god.
He hangs out with Aldebert and buys his time until Otto leaves again, and then he comes back in, tries to regain a little bit of control in Rome, starts levying some revenge against the bishops and others that had gotten him run out of town, overrode him, installed another false pope, if you will. He had some of their tongues cut out, had their hands and fingers removed.
Jesus.
Took some noses off.
Why?
Got your nose.
You ain't getting it back.
And then Otto came back and ran him off. And then I'm going to just skip ahead.
Okay.
He dies young.
Sure.
And there's two rumors about how he went out. He either was in the act of banging a lady and had a stroke.
Sure. I was going to say one of them had to involve sex. One of the two rumors.
Both of them do.
Oh, great.
Yeah, he was beaten to death by the husband of one of the married women's that he had gone. He was 27 when he died.
Jeez. Wow. Good God. Yeah, I kind of feel like this. Jesus Christ. I feel like the second one is more likely to be true. Like at this point, this guy's got an ass kicking coming.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently some cuckolded husband is the one to dish it out. So what is powers of persuasion? I mean, we know that, a lot of these will have been rapes and sexual assaults, but some of them will have been legitimate as well. So his powers of persuasion, like he must have had a reputation at this point. How is he getting women to sleep with him?
I mean, I think if you're figuring it's the Pope and they can offer absolution, I mean, maybe.
Yeah. Immediately after the act.
He wasn't handing out Hail Marys and whatnot at confession.
Have 3 blowjobs. And yeah, that's what it's like. Yeah, and then you're absolved. Wow. So that's his legacy then. He's done.
Yep, he lasted 8 years, made it to 27, banged all kinds of people. Might be his own stepmom's sister's son.
It's so dark. It's so weird. Yeah. I've heard some really interesting stories about bad popes over the years, like philandering popes is quite a common one. The other pope who had his predecessor dug up and put on trial, even though he'd been dead for years, that happened.
Wow.
Yeah. I think that was one of the popes was called Ignatius or Pope Innocent or something. It was one of those names around that time. Anyway, there are a lot of fucked up weird popes out there. We're not even getting onto the Medicis and the kind of the appointed popes of very powerful families in the Renaissance era Italy. And the fact that at one point in time there were 2 popes, one in France, one in Italy.
Oops.
Yeah.
Did they know about each other?
I think they did. I think they were like, frenemies. It's kind of amazing that this guy didn't start all-out war in the, in Catholic Europe. I guess because, obviously information will have traveled slow and stuff. Even this is a long time before the printing press was invented, but also I guess his reputation will have preceded him. So I guess states like Portugal, Spain, England, France, parts of the world where Catholic influence was strong, they're probably not going to get drawn into this because they're like, well, you kind of deserve it, you dickhead. So I guess like we averted all our war on that front for those very reasons. It would have been seen as like a localized geopolitical thing. It's like, let's not get involved. That's like Holy Roman Emperor shit. But in terms of scoring this guy, I have to go quite high because he, as Pope, and I know the job of Pope is, usually given to older fucking guys who have seen the world and they understand the weight of pressure that goes with such a position. But really, the object of being a Pope is to just ensure that you don't do anything that is beyond you have to be beyond reproach. You can't do anything even moderately questionable in that position, despite loads of them having done that. So for him to have gone completely the opposite direction, almost deliberately tried not to do any of the normal papal things, I have to give him a 90. I think he has to go 90 because it was deliberate. I mean, he got the papacy way too young. Like, if he got it in his 30s, lived a bit of life, maybe not been a spoiled brat who was, I don't know, married his relations or whatever it is, maybe he would have been a better pope, but I suspect not because he sounds spoiled and entitled and all of that. So, yeah, I think 90 is a fair score for what might turn out to be the worst pope of all time.
That's what I mean. God, I hope there's not a worse one than that.
I think there's probably some that are up there. I think certainly the ones that, the guy I mentioned who dug up his predecessor and put his corpse on trial.
Yeah, but did he cut his nose off?
I don't know. Probably not. It was probably eaten by worms at that point. But and there was another philandering pope who used to throw orgies. He was a bit older, I think.
Oh
maybe.
Yeah.
He had like phallic symbols throughout the place. Anyway, there are others. The guy that collaborated with the Nazis in a certain sense. That pope we have not so great. But I think 90 is a solid number for what is probably the worst pope of all time. Moving from a very notable person from 1,000 years ago to someone much less well known outside of the UK, but who is very, very recent, incredibly recent, and so recent, in fact, that his and his wife's story, you can't really call it a life story, has been turned into a drama on ITV. I would like to introduce you to the incredible story of John Darwin, the thief, his wife, and a canoe. That's the name of this part of the episode, and of the dramatization of what happened towards the end of his life. So John Darwin was born on the 14th of August, 1950, in Hartlepool, County Durham, in the northeast of England. The northeast, just for people out there who aren't familiar, very, very friendly part of England. It's probably the friendliest part of England. It's right on the border with Scotland, kind of you're talking around Northumberland area. Great food, really wild countryside there, really quite cold and extreme weather.
It's like your guys' Canada.
Basically, yeah. It's like Canada, only with a little bit more violence and some really interesting food and massive unemployment. But I recommend the Northeast to anyone who wants to see really interesting history, because there's like Lindisfarne there, which was raided by the Vikings, and all sorts of like it was before the French invaded in 1066. Northumberland was the stronghold of the UK, despite London being the capital. They kind of shifted the political focus. Anyway, this is the northeast of the UK. It's a great place. I really recommend it. I lived there for years. People are wonderful. John Darwin attended St. Francis Xavier's Grammar School in Hartlepool and De La Salle College in Salford, Lancashire, where he studied biology and chemistry. On the 22nd of December, 1973, Darwin married Anne Stevenson in Blackhall. Darwin then taught science and mathematics at Derwentshire for 18 years, which is a school, before leaving to join Barclays. He didn't last very long in the bank. He was kind of notorious for, I don't think schemes is the right word, but get rich quick plans. So there's one where apparently him and his very young sons at the time went out and they found like a job lot, like thousands of garden gnomes, which
what?
I know, garden gnomes, which he then took home, and him and his two young sons spent like a couple of days spray painting them gold. And they were going to make a fortune off these golden garden gnomes. They ended up making a massive loss and lost thousands of pounds as a result. He was doing stuff like that all the time. It was one scheme to the next, one failed idea after another, one stupid mistake. Like he's the guy who buys the magic beans, right? He's that guy. Okay, so wants to make money, wants to have an easy life, wants to escape the Northeast and the kind of the hard graft and harsh weather that comes with it. But he wants to do it the easiest way possible, and those ways are almost invariably scams. So
golden garden gnomes.
Golden garden gnomes. Could you have imagined anything more stupid in your life? Anyway, Anne, his wife, has got to put up with this. His sons kind of love him for it, but as they get older, they're like, oh God, Dad's a fucking idiot. He later became a prison officer at HMP Holme House. Holme House is a Category C men's prison located in Stockton-on-Tees, also in County Durham, England. Category C prisons, actually, there's a sliding scale in the UK of categories. So Category A would be like Belmarsh. That's where they send like terrorists and mass murderers who aren't insane, who can't go to an institution for the criminally insane. They send them to Belmarsh, where it's basically the UK's version of that prison in that Supermax prison in near the Rockies, where near South Park.
Florence Supermax.
Yes.
Yeah. Because we have a Florence State prison here, and every time they say that, I'm like, whoa. Why is he going there? And I'm like, oh, the one in Colorado.
The one in Colorado where no one ever gets out. Yeah. So Belmarsh is like that. That's where like a bunch of terrorists are. That's where a bunch of people who have committed mass murders and all the worst people. Yeah, really like multiple walls. They get like an hour out of their cell a day at most. And that's a Category A. Category B is for regular murderers. Who've only killed one or two people, regular murderers, and like violent criminals. Category C would be crimes that are not violent, but still require someone to be locked up for, let's say, 12 hours a day. So they're behind their doors at night, but during the day they're out working, they're doing stuff within the prison, they may be doing education, they may be trying to reform, whatever it might be. Category D prisons are open prisons. So typically you go to those towards the latter part of your sentence and you go out in the community to work during the day. And at weekends you get to go and see your family.
So it'd be like a halfway house type of thing.
Like a halfway house before a halfway house. So like you're in this prison at night, but during the day you're working. At weekends you have to see your family. And you're essentially, over a period of about 3 or 4 years, you're reintegrating into the normal flow of society in this country in Category D prisons. There's not many of them. In fact, there's not really enough for my liking, because the prison system in this country is not good. But anyway, Holme House in County Durham has a pretty decent reputation. It's operated by Her Majesty's Prison and Probation Service, so it's not a private prison. It's publicly owned. And as such, it means it has a kind of a more gentle regime for the prison guards because there's more of them. Whereas in private prisons, there's like less because they're trying to make money.
Yeah, you gotta stack that cash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they've got a more settled regime, with it being a Category C prison. Like a lot of the prisoners are kind of out at work for most of the day, so the guards can kind of take care of what they need to on the wings and in the cells and stuff. And as a result, because they're working for the government, essentially, they get a very, very healthy pension package, especially at this time. So they will get, pretty much 3/4 of their annual wage as a pension every year. So it's
Wow.
a nice, and typically prison officers will get a lump sum, and it would be like, I guess, 10% of your lifetime earnings. So it might be like 50 grand when you
Okay.
retire. Just like, here you go, here's 50 grand plus your pension. So decent
Wow.
pension package. So had he retired quietly, and he also had his teacher's pension as well, and
Oh,
not lived
yeah.
a wasteful and stupid life, John would have been very comfortable in retirement in his golden years, especially in the Northeast, which I've got to tell you is very cheap. It's cheap to live in the Northeast because not many people have jobs. And there's a lot of farmland, so there's an abundance of food and really good seafood as well. So, unfortunately, John is a stupid man. So that ain't going to happen. John and his wife, who was a doctor's receptionist, which meant she also had an NHS pension, which are also really, really good pensions to have because, again, you get your lump sum, you get 3/4 of your annual wage, blah, blah, stuff like that. They also had a side business renting bed sits. I think I need to explain what a bed sit is to
Okay.
people. A bed sit is basically an even smaller version of a studio apartment. So if you think about your typical studio apartment you get in any part of the US or the world, you're going to get you're going to get your bathroom. It might just be a shower and a toilet and a sink, but it's your own bathroom. You'll have kind of a kitchenette
Mhm.
area with maybe like a place that you can sit, maybe some stools, and then you'll have a bed. If you're lucky, you might have like a sofa in there as well, and an entertainment area.
Futon.
Futon, yeah, or like a Murphy bed type situation where
Yeah.
you pull it down from the wall. That's what you consider a studio apartment. Bed sits are smaller. You may only have a tiny kitchen area, which might be like a hob, like a countertop hob and a microwave and a sink. And you are lucky if you have your own bathroom. You probably have to share your bathroom with 3 or 4 other bed sits.
Ooh,
So
okay.
it's
Yeah.
essentially a room with a couple of kitchen bits in it, but it's yours. You have your own lock. Big fucking deal.
Uh,
Um, and a typical bed sit in this area, it's bed sits are seen as a bit of a last resort for people who are living on the poverty line, but they want their own place. So they're like, I can get a bed sit, and I'll try and improve my lot from there. Usually they include bills. So your council tax, your heating, your electricity, your water, all of that stuff will probably be included with rent, usually. And a typical bed sit, I did some research in the area at the time of this stuff happening, would have been $250 a month. And that's everything included. But if you think a lot of these people didn't have jobs, they're getting unemployment benefits. So they're having their rent paid, but they're only getting like £50 a week to live on.
okay.
So it's not a lot. You know,
Yeah.
you can buy your food, you can maybe buy like a train ticket or something, but not much else. So if you're looking for work, it has to be in the immediate vicinity of the apartment, right? You can't afford anything else. And he ran these in County Durham in 12 different houses. So John and his wife, not only did they have steady jobs and all these pensions coming in, they had 12 homes. Despite this, they ran into debt after purchasing 2 houses in Seaton Carew, which is a popular seaside town in the northeast, in December 2000. In total, despite all of this money coming in and all these jobs, and just live in your means and don't go insane, he owed around $80,000 on 13 different credit cards.
Wow.
So I
Holy
know.
crap.
What
That's
the fuck are you doing, dude?
that's God, think of that interest. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And it was, 2000 as well, really high interest rates at this point in time. Um, so Anne would sometimes have to cower behind her front door because debt collectors would come knocking on the door and they'd stay outside the front door for hours. So she'd just
Oh,
hide like in the
that
hallway or something.
sucks.
That's garbage living right
Why
there. You
wouldn't they
should not
just
have to do that.
sell one of the 12 houses?
I know. Sell 2 of them. This is why I was like, I was in property for 13 years. It's the easiest thing in the world. Make it livable, rent it out, have a steady income. If you can't afford it, sell it at a profit. It's not hard to do, but he couldn't even do that. 12 houses, all of these different incomes coming in from bedsits, and they still had $80,000 in debt. It's crazy. I just don't understand it. Anyway, the debts caused Darwin to start scheming. And this is where he thinks more garden gnomes coming.
Boy.
He started talking to his wife about taking drastic measures to make sure their debts were cleared by early 2002, when they'd been under the hammer of the debt collectors for 2 years at this point. And now let's get to the main story. Darwin was seen paddling out to sea in his canoe on the 21st of March 2002 at Seaton Carew. Just before he got on the sea, he kind of exited his house as soon as his neighbor was opening the front door to theirs to go back in, and he went, "Lovely day for a canoe." And the neighbor's like, "What the fuck's wrong with you?" "All right, okay, enjoy it." Anyway, later the same day, he was reported as missing after failing to report to work. A large-scale sea search took place, during which 62 square miles, 160 square kilometers of coastline was searched. And this is some rough coastline. This is this is the North Sea. So
Okay.
you are heading out to Scandinavia at this point. If you get lost off the North Sea, you're going to end up off the coast of Sweden or somewhere, or Norway, if your body makes it that far. There was no sign of Darwin, though a double-ended paddle was retrieved from the sea near Seaton Carew the following day. Later, on the 22nd of March 2002, the wreckage of Darwin's canoe was found. The North Sea was unusually calm, and rescuers were puzzled that Darwin could have gotten into trouble in such conditions. They later theorized that he'd had a heart attack while at sea. After
Seems
days
legit.
it happens. I mean, at this point, he's in his 50s. He's not a particularly healthy guy. He's like kind of prime candidate. He's got a stressful job, because being a prison guard is, as you know, it's not the easiest job in the world at all.
No, it kind of
So
sucks. Yeah.
it does suck. So, he is a prime, and he's got debts and stuff. He's a prime candidate for a heart attack. So doing rigorous exercise miles out at sea in, good conditions, but it's the middle of the fucking ocean. It's not great. A heart attack sounds plausible, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's see. They theorized he'd had a heart attack. After days of searching the area, the massive search that had cost nearly $500,000 was called off, and the family threw a wreath into the sea. It was Anne and her 2 sons. Anne was supported by her entire family, particularly by her 2 sons, who were round at her house multiple times a week, despite both living over 50 miles away. And because it's the Northeast, 50 miles, that's a long journey. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to head up this hour version of the interstate and be there in 30 minutes or something. That's like a 2.5 hour drive sort of thing sometimes. It's a winding series of roads. Unfortunately, under British law, Anne would have to wait 7 years before
Holy
John
crap.
could be declared dead. You have to wait a long time when people go missing with no body for them to be declared dead, because they're worried that they'll just show up somewhere and be like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm fine. I just didn't report it to the police or whatever." But yeah, 7 years. With the debt collector still knocking at her door, Anne pressured the police and the local coroner to declare John dead, and after 2 years was granted her wish when the coroner recorded an open verdict allowing Anne to collect on John's $400,000 life insurance policy. That's a shitload of money. Also, as a result of his death, it was included in the life insurance policy. All of the mortgages were paid off.
Oh, perfect.
I know. So the debt's gone, the mortgages are done, and she's got $400,000.
Nice. What's she gonna do?
I know, £250,000. This is where your suspicions are confirmed. During the years that Darwin was presumed dead, he lived for some time in a bedsit next door in the family home. The next
He was at home.
house. He was at home the whole fucking time. So they bought in Seaton Carew, in this place, they bought 2 quite large properties next to each other. They were terraced houses over 4 floors. So you've got a basement, entry level, first floor, second floor, all the way up. That's how we deal with it in the UK. And they were next to each other, but there's a particular quirk of the design that the homes, for some reason, these houses had doors in the walls between each property, so you could slip through one and be in number 4 instead of number 3, whatever road.
So it's like a hotel where you get the little between doors.
Exactly. Only between floors, rooms on floors, and these are bedsits, so they're supposed to be entirely self-contained apartments. So he was slipping through. He was living next door. He'd grown a beard. He put on fucked up glasses. He walked with a stick, pretended to be an old man, and he was just popping through every day.
My goodness!
Pretending to live there. Crazy shit. He then secretly moved back in with his wife Anne in February 2003, and whenever the kids would come over, he'd just pop through a secret door and go next door and just hide out there for a few hours.
It's like an episode of Scooby-Doo.
It's so fucking funny. Sometime that year, a tenant of the block of bedsit flats that the Darwins own, so number 4, Lee Woodrup, recognized Darwin and asked him, "Aren't you supposed to be dead?" To which Darwin replied, instead of like trying to style it out and being like, "Oh, I get that all the time. No, I'm not John Darwin. I'm just like an old man, and we might have been distant cousins. Who knows? I don't know where my family tree is." You style that shit out, right? You'd like fake it out. But his response was, "Don't tell anyone about this."
That'll work.
Stupid bastard. Woodrup later said that he had not told the police because he didn't want to get involved. I can't believe that worked.
Don't tell anyone. Okay.
Don't tell. All right. Yeah. It's none of my business. What do I care?
Would at least got free rent. Hey,
I know.
I'm living here for free, dude.
I know. Yeah. I won't tell anyone, but yeah, I'm living here for free, and you bring me food. In 2004, the Darwins decided to move abroad, initially considering Cyprus. John Darwin applied for and obtained a passport using the false name John Jones. So he's the Martian Manhunter now. John Jones, a name he took from a dead baby in a move. I know he'd gone through records and found like a baby that died after like a month or something and just assumed its identity. A move straight out of a book that was a favorite of his, The Day of the Jackal, which I don't know if you've ever seen the film that was remade with Bruce Willis in the early 2000s or late 90s. I can't remember. The Day of the Jackal, the original film, is brilliant. It's about an attempt to kill the French president, and it's really good. It's a really good spy film from like the 70s or something. So he'd taken this name, John Jones. He'd registered, got himself a new passport, new birth certificate, all of that. But amazingly, he decided to use his true home address as where he was living as John Jones. Stupidest fucking decision.
Well, hold on now, because I was going to say, when he moved back in with his wife, did he do it as her new second husband?
Nobody knew. He was just like, "I'll move in, but whenever anyone comes over, I'll go right next door."
See, now he could have made it more plausible with using his own name as just being the next husband. She's got a type, you know.
Well, yeah, but like, then you've got to invite the kids around, and the kids are going to be like, "That's our fucking father." Don't.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. I swear. Come and give me a hug, son. It's like, you even smell like him. Yeah, no, it wouldn't have fooled anyone. The couple visited Cyprus in November 2004 to investigate buying property there, but couldn't find anything they liked. Also, Cyprus is quite expensive because it's like it's an expat part of the world, so a lot of British citizens live there. Also, Cyprus is an interesting place. No extradition treaties in Cyprus. Yeah. Cyprus is like there's a whole, because like half of Cyprus is Greek and the other half is Turkish. There's a whole like dispute going on there, and a lot of people, when they flee the UK, they used to go to Cyprus or Spain because there were like no extradition treaties with the UK. So they're looking really specifically here at places where they're like, it's warm and also it's dodgy as fuck. So kind of amazing.
So like Argentina.
Yeah, exactly. It's the boys from Brazil. In May 2005, an angler, Matt outie claimed to have met Darwin, who was going under the name John Williams at a lake near Penzance, Cornwall. When back at home, Darwin is reported to have spent most of his time on the internet, where he played Second Life, which is hilarious.
Some Inception stuff.
I know. It's hilarious. Where he encountered a woman from Kansas in the US. He almost immediately flew out to meet her. I should point out that John was a really bad philanderer, and this woman managed to con him out of something like £50,000, about $80,000, like some sort of story about starting a horse ranch or some shit. And it was the honey trap thing, basically.
It's like a catfish honey trap.
He got catfish, basically. He got out there, had a bunch of sex with a woman, and lost a shitload of money, and then came back with his tail tucked between his legs to his wife. By November, Darwin was back in the UK and flew from Newcastle to Gibraltar, and then traveled to El Puerto de Santa Maria to view a £45,000, 42-foot, 13-meter catamaran that he was considering buying from boat dealer Robert Hopkin. I mean, it's a step up from a fucked up canoe. Yes, it, really. Let's be honest.
Absolutely.
You could do a Waterworld thing.
Where's he gonna get the cash for this, though?
Oh well, his wife's got the cash, right? So remember all of that, like $400,000.
I forgot.
She's got from his life insurance. So they're like, "Ooh, let's spread it around a little bit." The following month, Anne returned to the UK to sell her home, while Darwin remained in Panama. They're now looking at Panama. In May 2007, the couple purchased a £200,000 tropical estate in the village of Escobal, Colón, Panama, Canada, near the Panama Canal, with the intention of building a hotel from where canoeing holidays could be run.
Nah.
Fun.
Careful.
In March, I know. On March 2006, we went back a little bit in time. Darwin is reported to have signed a planning objection to a neighbor's building work using a false name. Darwin and he just can't help himself. Stop doing things if you pretend to be dead. Darwin and his wife began to consider Panama as a possible destination, as it was cheap and notoriously corrupt. Yeah. Hence why, if you Google the Panama Papers, you'll find where every billionaire in the world's money went for a certain period of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Panama, basically, is the answer. And the couple flew to Panama on the 14th of July 2006, where they were photographed by a Panamanian property agent, and the resulting photograph was posted on the internet. Stupidest couple ever. They didn't even pretend. Like, at this point, he shaved his beard off. He stopped using a walking stick. He's now just, oh, look at me. This is how I would look if I was still alive and a few years older.
If I was still alive.
Yeah. Newspapers from February 2007 were later found in the boarded up gap between the Darwin's house and the bedsit where John had hidden. In March 2007, the couple returned to Panama and formed a company called Jaguar Properties in order to buy a 2-bedroom apartment in El Dorado for £50,000. So they're looking at buying £200,000 worth of land near the Panama Canal, and also this luxurious 2-bedroom apartment in El Dorado for £50,000. So they're doing quite well. And I mean, obviously, they're selling off their properties in the UK. They're moving abroad, plus this huge amount of money they've inherited from the life insurance.
Right.
The bedsit house next to the family home was sold under the name of Darwin's son, Mark. The home had been transferred to Mark in 2006 after his dad died. The proceeds from the sale were then transferred to the mother in Panama. Now, in the dramatization of this, the sons are made out to be completely innocent. Like they knew nothing at all. And I believe that they certainly didn't know a lot about what happened, but elements of this story will show that there is some suspicion that they may have been slightly involved.
You'd have to at least think something was going on.
It's like you might. Well, actually, this is the thing as well. In court documents, Anne Darwin is called a habitual liar, and a very convincing one. So not a very convincing actress, but a very, very convincing liar. So she was very
Okay.
good at thinking on her feet. So her sons were just like, oh, and they wouldn't question it because they're like, oh, we don't want to upset her. She's just lost her husband, So
Makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Anne returned to the UK to sell her home while Darwin remained in Panama. In May 2007, the couple purchased. So they actually purchased the thing near the Panama Canal. In a later interview published with Darwin, published in Elizabeth Greenwood's book Playing Dead, he states that the canoe rental aspect of this purchase was a story entirely fabricated by the media, playing on the romanticism of his fake death. I kind of want it to be true. I want him to have been like, haha, I faked my death with a canoe. Let's rent them out in Panama. I want it to be true, but it does sound like the kind of thing the British press would make up. So. He and Anne visited Panama again in July 2007, staying for 6 weeks. A police investigation, however, was started in September when a colleague of Anne became suspicious upon hearing a phone conversation between the couple, which Anne passed off as like, oh, I'm just talking to a friend from the choir in church or something. The colleague was like, no, I'm not buying it. The Darwin home was sold for £295,000 in October 2007, and Anne subsequently left for Panama. In the third week of November, the couple holidayed in Costa Rica before returning to Panama. So they're going all over the world.
Yeah, they're globetrotting over here.
Globetrotting with all this money, and they flew like business class a lot of time, first class, and that's quite a risk. You get a lot of attention when you fly in those statuses, don't you really?
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, I don't know that they would pay any deeper attention, but
no,
still, I don't know. Flying around, traveling around on a fake passport seems sketch to me. Eventually, somebody's going to be like, this shit looks weird.
Yeah, and also, especially when you're returning multiple times from South America, that's the kind of thing that gets you a lot of attention at customs when you come back through the country. People are like, are you a mule? What are you?
Right?
How have you been out to Panama 5 times this year? On the 30th of November 2007, Anne bought an airline ticket for her husband to return to England because he was missing his sons, the sons who thought he was dead. He wanted to come back to life. So she was like, here you go, honey. Here's a plane ticket. I guess you're back to life now. On the same day, this is weird. On the same day, Mark left his property firm after working his notice period, which is the son.
Okay.
Following a change in Panama's visa laws, John Darwin emailed Anne on the 14th of June 2007 to notify her that their identities would have to be verified by UK police in order for them to receive now required Panamanian investors' visas. Knowing that this John Jones alias would not pass this level of scrutiny, Darwin decided to return to the UK. I'm going to have to be careful how I say this. Is so funny. Decided to return to the UK under his real name and fake amnesia. Yeah. Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. I don't know where I've been the last 20 years. Why, I think I might have been in an accident.
He had just watched The Majestic with Jim Carrey.
Yes.
And he's like, I've got an idea.
I have a plan. John, this is worse than the Golden Gnomes, for sure. On the 1st of December 2007, Darwin walked into the Northwest Central Police Station in London, claiming to have no memory of the past 5 years. His wife, Anne, who had sold up her British properties and moved to Panama 3 months before his reappearance, expressed surprise, joy, and elation at the return of her missing husband. The UK police by that time had already suspected that Darwin might not have died, since Anne, despite portraying herself as a broken-hearted widow, took foreign holidays, planned to sell the family home in Hartlepool, to move to Panama, and transferred large sums of money abroad. It's all super
just
suspicious.
Weird, yeah.
Yeah, it's just not something that a grieving widow does, really.
It's something whose husband faked their death and you're running around with him does, I think.
Yeah,
maybe.
it's like, maybe they are that stupid. Maybe we should have a look into this. Police financial investigation had begun 3 months prior to the Darwins' reappearance, following a tip-off from one of Anne's colleagues connecting her claim on her husband's life insurance and her subsequent emigration to Panama. She was ratted out, basically. And also, randomly, John, because he was always reasonably careful when he went out, like he'd go out through the door in number 4 instead of Anne's place in number 3. He'd go in all this get up where he'd have the beard and the old man
Yeah, I
hair,
picture
and
him
the
in like a
walking stick.
trench coat, looking like
Yeah, like
Inspector
he's like
Gadget with a
doubled over and
cane.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically that. But on one occasion, he wasn't quite so careful, and he just went out to the shops to get a bunch of food shopping. And one of his former colleagues spotted him walking over the road and was like, "You were at home house. You're supposed to be dead."
Nope, wasn't me.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, he reported it. A bunch of other people reported it, and the cover story was falling apart. It was particularly unraveled after the Daily Mirror published the photo of the Darwins taken in Panama by the estate agents in 2006 that had just sat on the internet for the last 18 months,
Oops.
doing, for anyone to see. The photograph had been discovered when a member of the public searched for the words John, Anne, and Panama in Google Images, and it's the first fucking thing that comes up. I can't believe how stupid these people are.
Oh no.
Dude, the photo had featured on the website of movetopanama.com and was brought to the attention of the Daily Mirror and the Cleveland police, and reportedly confirmed that the photograph was of John by saying, "Yes, that's him. My sons will never forgive me." No, they probably won't, actually.
No.
Because you've kind of fucked them as well.
That was kind of one of the things I've been thinking this entire time. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, how much of a dick do you have to be to fake your death and not tell your kids?
I know.
I'd be so mad.
She
I'd
apparently
kill him
blames him
again.
for that. I know. She apparently blames him for that. She was like, that was part of his plan. And he thought they'd get over it after a certain period of time. But it's hard to know what the truth is in this thing. Like, they
Well, it's
may
like
have just been like, we can't tell the kids.
I could see, oh, maybe we could sell it better.
Yeah.
That whole 3 can keep a secret if 2 are dead sort of thing, keep less
Yeah.
people involved. But if you're gonna be as inept and bumbling as they are anyway,
Might as well just tell him.
you're
We'll
throwing
just do it.
pictures up on the internet, tell your kids.
They clearly didn't know. And actually, it's I don't want to pigeonhole an entire generation here, but it's such a baby boomer thing to be like, oh, the kids don't have to know. Let's not worry the kids with this sort of thing. Let's just, like, they can find out in their own time, instead of just like, why don't we be honest with our children and maybe let them make their own informed decisions? They're like, no, let's not tell the kids. It'll just worry them.
Yeah.
So the photo featured, the police then arrested John Darwin at his son Anthony's house in Basingstoke. At this point, he's moved in with his son, and his son showing him in pictures, and he's like, "We used to live here, Dad." And he's like, "Oh, did we? Oh, can't remember that, son. Amnesia in the head."
Yeah.
A police
Yep.
investigation discovered that Darwin had been using a false passport by the name of John Jones, an identity that had belonged to a baby from Sunderland who had died in 1950, the same year John was born. Upon examining the false passport, police found that Darwin had made several trips to Panama in the previous 5 years. At some point, he must have forgotten that he made those trips and then remembered again and then done it again and then forgotten, and it was just pattern of behavior with amnesia.
Yeah, he was just on a loop. He just
I
kept
know.
leaving and
It's
coming
just,
back.
he was doing what's that? What was the first Christopher Nolan film? Guy Pearce, Memento.
Oh, yeah.
He's doing
Yeah.
that. He's just doing that shit over and over again. I'm going to find my killer. Darwin's 2 sons initially expressed elation at the return of their father, but as the story unfolded, they issued a joint statement live on television stating that they felt they'd been victims of a scam and implying that they wished to have no further contact with their parents. That's
Wow.
yeah, both sons were reported to have changed their jobs before their father's reappearance. On December, that just might be a coincidence, but
Could
on the
be.
6th of December, one of John Darwin's sons allegedly disappeared after clearing out his North London flat and leaving a notepad reportedly containing coded messages for his girlfriend, as well as directions for her to get to London City Airport. Police emphasized that he was not suspected of any crime. It could have just been paranoia. And
Could
he's
have been.
like, we talk in this code. I'll leave it for her so that the press don't get hold of it and make our lives any more difficult than it is. But it's like, that's suspicious behavior in itself.
I feel
Right.
like he got that behavior from his dad.
They probably did, actually. Seeing what we're seeing now. It's like,
Oop,
oh,
might
I'm
be in
gonna
trouble. Gonna fake my death.
yeah. Let me make a cipher like I'm the fucking bloody what was it, the killer from
Jason
the
Bourne
60s.
and shit.
Yeah, Jesus. Later that day, Darwin was charged with obtaining life assurance money by deception and making untrue statements to obtain a passport. And Darwin was arrested at Manchester Airport the following day upon returning to the UK. They arrested her on the tarmac in front of a plane full of people and detained in connection with the allegation of fraud. She appeared in court on the 11th of December in Hartlepool to face 2 charges of fraud, obtaining £25,000 and £137,000 by deception. She remained in custody until the 14th of December, upon which she was released on bail. Darwin appeared at Hartlepool Magistrates Court on the 10th of December, where he was also remanded in custody until the 14th of December and was released on bail. On the 14th of December, Anne and John Darwin appeared separately before Hartlepool Magistrates Court, and they were both remanded in custody, so they weren't free for very long. Again, on the 11th of January 2008. On the 9th of January 2008, John and Darwin returned to Hartlepool Magistrates Court to face further charges of deception. John faced an additional charge of obtaining £137,000 by deception, the same charge his wife was already facing, in addition to the existing life insurance charge against both of them obtaining for £25,000 and John's separate charge of obtaining a passport by deception. They were then both charged together for obtaining more money from a teacher's pension scheme, 2 separate amounts of £25,000 and £58,000, as well as for obtaining money from the Department of Work and Pensions, 2 separate amounts of £2,000 and £2,200. They were remanded in custody once more to appear in court again on the 18th of January. They've been remanded multiple times at this point. This is pretty serious. On the night of the 18th of January, they appeared separately at Hartlepool Magistrates Court via video link and were remanded in custody again until the 15th of February when they were committed to a Crown Court. So at this point, I should probably explain the British legal system. You
Yes,
go
please.
to you go to a magistrates court for minimal stuff, typically stuff like speeding tickets, fines.
Okay.
Maybe you got into a drunken fight and you spent the nights in the cells, and they decide whether you are going to face trial in a magistrate's court or whether your crime is so serious that it has to be referred to Crown Court. The maximum sentence you can get in a magistrate's court in the UK is 6 months in prison. That's the most you can get. The majority of the time, it will be a suspended sentence or community service or a fine or something like that. If you go to Crown Court, obviously you can get life in prison. That's really, really serious at that point. You can still get a suspended sentence, but they understand that the crime is so significant it needs the full weight of the justice system put on it instead of just like a local magistrate. It needs like experienced trial lawyers. So you're weeding out the shit that shouldn't really go to high court and have thousands and thousands of pounds spent on it, which makes sense, but it's like it drags the process out sometimes for years because of this. Because you got to arrange this shit.
It's like Superior Court here versus City Court.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you got your local justice as opposed to your like kind of more serious regional justice, I guess. Something like that, basically. Okay. Let's see. They've been remanded. John Darwin, on the 13th of March, admitted 7 charges of obtaining cash by deception and a passport offence at Leeds Crown Court. He denied 9 charges of using criminal property. These charges were ordered to lie on file, so that's like they'll keep these in your record, and if more evidence comes up, you'll be charged with them, but it's unlikely to be honest. Anne Darwin, on the other hand, denied 6 charges of deception and 9 of using criminal property. On the 23rd of July 2008, Anne and John Darwin were both convicted of fraud. John Darwin faced an additional charge relating to his fake passport and was sentenced to 6 years and 3 months in prison. So it's a long time. British legal system, he would have done half of that and then been released on remand. So he would have served half in prison. So he'd have done 3 years and 1.5 months in prison, and then the rest of it will have been on license, either in a halfway house or with an approved residence. And then after the remaining 3 years or whatever, out in the local area, he would have been like the sentence would have been done.
Okay.
So
So he was dead for 5 years and then in prison for 3.
yes, and then
Okay.
hanging around on what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, he would have been basically 6 years. So he's been dead for 5, 6 years out under Her Majesty's leisure. So yeah, not particularly great. The interesting thing though is Anne Darwin, who's obviously at the center of it all, was described by police as a compulsive liar, was sentenced to 6 years and 6 months. So she got a longer sentence than he did. Yeah, she got 3 more months in prison than he did. So
maybe it's because she's the one that got the money directly. I mean, obviously,
I guess
it's his stupid plan.
it's his dumbass plan, and he's the one who's like, I'm going to go out and row out into the middle of nowhere and pretend I'm dead. But she's the one who's doing all the legwork, essentially.
So
So
she's getting punished for doing more work. Damn it.
yeah, it's kind of like the getaway driver getting a longer sentence than the guy who holds at the bank. Really,
A little bit there. Yeah.
Both appealed against the sentences on the 27th of March 2009. Both appeals were denied by the Court of Appeal. Anne was imprisoned at HM Prison Low Newton, which is like a high security women's prison, which means that it's going to be much better than the men's. Usually women's prisons in this country, they're actually quite good, whereas men's prisons are shitholes. The Crown Prosecution Service said that all the profits from the callous and calculated fraud committed by the couple would be confiscated, which the Proceeds of Crime Act, it's quite a recent thing in this country. It's only been around for about 15 years, not that long at all. They don't always get everything. So that's say a drug dealer's committed of dealing drugs.
Okay.
And they're living in a lavish house, bunch of cars, bunch of shit that, you know, like, I don't know, art and stuff. The police will just seize it all because they're like, you got this by selling drugs, which means that it's ill-gotten gains, essentially.
Gotcha.
So and then they usually, and this is the great thing in this country, if you can ever find a police auction, you can get some really interesting shit at knockdown prices, because they will auction that stuff off for nothing because they just want to cover their costs. They don't care about making a profit. So you can get really good cars for like a couple of £1,000. It's really good.
I've seen some nice stuff at the police auction out here.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I don't feel great about handling it, but you know, it's bargain's bargain. So both appealed the sentence. On the 14th of February 2012, the CPS announced that the entire £501,641.39 in life insurance and pension payouts received by Anne Darwin had been recovered, partly from the sale of 2 properties in Panama. So this is almost $1 million at this point in time. Has been recovered successfully. That rarely happens, that you get the money back.
That's good shit. But
that's
then
some good financial work.
I looked back, or I was looking back and thinking, like, well, man, if he had that, he just had to sell one. He would have paid off his debt. Didn't have to fake his death. But I guess he got
stupid.
That. Yeah. What a mess.
It's so pointless. Kingsley Highland, head of the Northeast Crown Prosecution Service Complex Casework Unit, said, "It is important that fraudsters see that not only will we prosecute them wherever possible, but we will also make every effort to retrieve their ill-gotten gains, to return them to those they have defrauded." Which in this case is the government, so I'm kind of okay with them stealing a bit of that. In April 2014, it was reported that John Darwin had repaid just £121 from the £679,073 that the judge had ordered him to repay. However, that was because all the assets were in Anne's name. By July 2015, the pair no longer had any assets, having repaired over £500,000 in all the money that they'd made, and that's kind of basically around $1 million. And thus ends the story of John and Anne Darwin, the people who faked their death to pay off debts and were the most inept people in history, potentially. Couldn't believe it.
Man. So, okay, he's kind of a little bit like, he starts out almost like a little bit of a modern day Timothy Dexter, where he's doing bad businesses, only they don't work out for him.
Exactly. Yeah, he's not lucky at all.
Not
and
accidentally.
Quite stupid. Yeah, exactly.
And then I'm disappointed that he didn't come back and impersonate her new second husband.
I know. That would have been much more fun, wouldn't it?
And God, what a dick for letting his kids be in the dark. I'd be so
Oh yeah,
mad.
I would too. Like, there's no coming back from that, is there? Like, that your parents are never perfect. We'll grow up with this knowledge that, if only this had been different, this might have been, all of that stuff that you usually get with the relationship you have with your parents. But these two really fucked their kids over, because it reminds me a little bit. I mean, it's not quite to the extent, but Bernie Madoff's kids, who knew
Oh,
nothing about the scam. And one of them ended up killing himself, and the other one ended up getting leukemia as a result. But yeah, I really do feel for these kids, because they knew nothing, and they were complicit, because apparently at one point, Anne made them sign a document, and she was like, "I'm selling the house. It's in your name. This is just an inheritance tax thing. It just means that we can pay that off, and we're not going to get into any trouble. You don't have to read it; just sign it."
and you
And
wouldn't, because it's your mom.
I know you wouldn't read it because you trust your mother. And what they were actually signing was documents that made them co-owners of the property firm that she was setting up in Panama, so that it looked more legitimate. So they've pulled their own kids into this fraud now.
Oh man.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. See, it would have been redeeming if that had been a canoe business.
It would have been much more entertaining, wouldn't it? Just John pictures him on the internet. Haha, you can't extradite me. Look at me in my canoe.
I kind of wish when they got out on bail, they would have both went for a canoe trip.
Oh, that would have been funny. The first thing they do, they invite the press round to take pictures, and like, we'll sell you the pictures for £5,000. Pay for our trial. Yeah, it's such a funny story. In a way, it's so British, because the idea that it's like fake the death, and then just like get a really not massive amount of insurance money, but use it to kind of go and live a life in a warm place abroad.
Dude,
But there's
is
so
that a
inept.
common thing? You guys get
It
out of the
is
cold, like
a
anywhere
lot of.
warm.
I know, and a lot of in the I come from North Wales, and North Wales at times feels like God's waiting room, because a lot of people move there when they retire, because it's a bit like Florida in that sense, in that it's cooler in the summer but warmer in the winter. Really nice beaches, everything's reasonably flat along the coast. So yeah, and British people have got this reputation where like they will buy a house in Spain, a house in Italy, a house in Greece, a house in France, or something like that. So they'll buy a second home. All these baby boomers and stuff will do that, so that they can have like a little pied a terre to get away to for a couple of weeks out of the year, and like maybe they'll retire there and sell their home in wherever it is. So yeah, it's like a common goal. What you tend not to see too often is people faking their own death so that they can afford to do that, really. So
Hey, well, whatever you got to do, you know.
yeah, just enjoy a bit of sunshine. Let's pretend to die. Um, I don't know. I don't really know what to make of this, because I feel like if they'd gotten away with it, they'd probably have a higher mark. I don't really know how you want to score this one.
I think
It's
if they
so
would have
weird.
gotten away with it, I would have known nothing about them.
Exactly. Yeah. If it had been like the crypto lady from last time, who has
Oh,
just disappeared with all of that
yeah,
money, like she's very good at it, because she's clearly made off with a shitload of money. So
maybe.
yeah, maybe. But these definitely didn't, and now they're
Yeah,
old and broke, and probably living in one of their bed sits
and
in Seaton, Colton, whatever it is. Yeah.
the Darwins get extra points for being the Darwins,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
for
Soiling
being
that name.
jackasses. Yeah. Um,
Evolution failed them on that front. Yeah.
I feel like just because of the poor kids and
Yeah.
how bad they were at it, and because they spray painted gnomes gold, that's that's worth at least, and it's at least an 80,
I
I
feel like,
think.
yeah. It's one of those things where they, other than fucking up their kids' lives, which is terrible. Fortunately, their kids were they were older. They were like full-grown men. They had their own wives. They had their own houses, their own jobs. So
Right.
like they can rebuild to a certain extent, it's not going to cause massive psychological trauma if they were
Yeah,
like
it's not
young
like they're
kids.
12. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like they're kids and it's like it's going to fuck them up for their lives. Like, obviously, it will fuck them up, but they can rebuild in privacy somewhere else by moving into a different job and selling their homes or whatever. But they didn't kill anyone, and the amount they stole was so little. It's just the fact that they were so fucking stupid about it.
Exactly. It's because they were just dumb. And
Yeah.
like taking pictures and like, I'm gonna fake my death and disappear, and then let you take pictures of me. Here, let
I
me hold
know.
up a newspaper with today's date.
And also the way he's like, when he's going out for the canoe thing, and he's like, "Ooh, lovely day for a canoe ride at 3:04 p.m. on this wonderful Monday." This is like making sure that the neighbor gets as
Right?
much
Stomping
information as
his foot.
possible. Yeah, like, oh look, I think the weather might be changing. Do you see that one cloud on the horizon? I hope I don't fall afoul of that. Ooh, my heart's feeling a bit funny. Maybe I shouldn't go out. Like, all of this stuff is like, what are you doing? Why are you giving me this much information?
Right.
It's so stupid.
Gotta give the backstory.
So yeah, a hilarious story. One of the most inept crimes in UK history. One of the most entertaining for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
Fuck me. John Darwin and Anne Darwin, the thief, his wife, and the canoe. It's a great little. I think it's like a 3-part. I haven't finished it actually. It's a 3-part series on ITV. If you've got VPNs, try and watch the ITV player. And it's got Eddie Marsden in it, he's a very good actor. He's been in a bunch of stuff with like Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright and stuff. He's been in a bunch of their films. So yeah, I'd highly recommend it. It's really entertaining. It's depressing at times, but yeah, that's them. And we've also had I nearly said Hugh. It wasn't Hugh. It was James the 11th, was it?
Pope John the 12th
John the
and
12th.
his Papal Pornocracy.
Papal Pornocracy, the worst pope in history. It's been a really interesting week. I mean, we've had a very high profile, almost psychotically deranged pope, and then just some really inept con people. So been a really interesting episode. I should point out there's someone who has contributed. I will be using his work in the not too distant future. And there will be a special edition, 10,000 plays episode coming up for episode 9 because we're having a little bit of a holiday. We're taking 2 weeks off. Well, I am, and you've been forced into having a break from the podcast.
Oh, no.
I know, you get time off. So watch out for that. There's going to be a 2.5-hour special edition featuring some of our greatest ever segments. I think it's 4 different segments and a bunch of information there. And also, if you want to give us a follow, go on social media. You can follow us at History's Greatest Idiots on Instagram and at Greatest Idiots. I nearly got that wrong on Twitter. And of course, if you want to be our first Patreon, we've been saying this for so long, please be our first Patreon. Go to patreon.com/History's Greatest Idiots and you can support us and get a bunch of amazing merchandise for free when you sign up for various levels. It's amazing. Go and do it. I've had so much fun. I don't know about you researching this crazy Pope. I bet at times you probably couldn't believe it.
I honestly, I was like, this dude is nuts. There's no way this is real. And then I was bouncing around between sources and it was all pretty legit, like kidnapping pilgrim married women. And I think the best part is that he was either beaten to death by a married woman's husband or he had a stroke while having sex with a married woman.
Sex, yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, it's like I kind of want him to have not died a boring death. Like, oh, he died peacefully in his seat. Like, no, he was beaten to death by an angry man while he was trying to jump out the window. You know,
karma, like his stepdad, uncle, cousin,
uncle, mother, wife, whatever. Yeah. So there we go. There's been a really amazing episode this week. So until next time, Derek, would you like to say goodbye, please?
Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening so much. And we will see you again in a couple of weeks when you can listen to our greatest hits episode for the first 2 seasons and 8 episodes. Okay, everybody, take care now. Bye.